What's going on YouTube? Global Bells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be taking a look at Salamence and what it can do right now in the meta. So typically when I do these kinds of videos, right, I always like to highlight a certain Pokemon, you know, because it's been doing well in like recent tournament play, or I think it could be really good in, you know, certain situations. And then we look at the tournament results, you know, we make some conclusions, we note some of the popular sets, so this way you could use it on your own teams when you do your team building, right? This one's a little bit different, right? Because, you know, Salamence, it's people are trying it. People are trying it. They have some success, right? I don't think they've had as much as the other types of Pokemon that we featured on the channel, but people are trying it, and there is some use of it if you decide to try and do Salamence. And you know, we've done like Garchomp, we've done Hydreigon, we've done Dragonite. You know, and maybe it's time Salamence can try to be used in terms of some meta play, right? But first, what we're going to do is just take a look at its stats here and just see like what kind of moves sets it can offer in this generation. So typically, Salamence has relatively solid above average bulk, right? 95 HP, base 80 defense, base 80 special defense. So all around, you know, no triple digits, but, you know, good HP number and just relatively above average bulk, right? And it's got the same typing as Dragonite. I think it just has like maybe one attack more than Dragonite. But the advantage here with Salamence, as opposed to something like a Dragonite, right, as we were just mentioning, or even like a Hydreigon, is that speed, right? Because if you look at Hydreigon, base speed 98, right? Dragonite even slower, base speed 80. This is the main drawback of Dragonite. But if you look at Salamence, it falls under that base speed 100 category, and that's important, right? Because typically we always have this rule, or this unwritten rule, where, you know, the faster dragon always wins, because, you know, dragons are weak to dragons. So if you can get off your dragon move against their dragon type Pokemon, you're able to probably pick up the KO, and then, you know, you win that exchange, right? And that's the one thing that Salamence can do as opposed to these other two, right? And unlike the other two, well, actually they both have like that kind of same idea, where like you can either run like a special Dragonite set, even though it's a physical attacker. Same idea with Hydreigon. You can run physical even though its main is a special attacker. Salamence is in that same category, where like, yes, 135 attack, but it's got 110 special attack, you know, which is not bad, right? And we've seen some mixed sets over the course of, you know, the Pokemon games, and this generation is no different, right? And the one thing that Salamence can do, as opposed to like Dragonite, Hydreigon, or even Garchomp, I'll even throw this in there, is Salamence has Intimidate. So, you know, in previous gens, right, Intimidate probably would have been very much welcome, but in this gen, as of this moment, it's not as useful, just because of the Defiant stuff running around, or the Clear Amulet stuff. So maybe the Salamence set has to change, right? Maybe it might even go for a Moxie ability, where, you know, you can just raise the attack by a stage if it picks up a KO, you know, similar to how Quaquaval was used and how it got its results in some tours. But in terms of like movesets, I know for a fact it gets Tailwind, which is huge, right? Even though technically Dragonite and Hydreigon both get it, but your Tailwind is faster because, you know, you are the faster dragon. Okay, so that's a plus going for it. If we just go down the movesets here, it does get Brick Break, which is actually kind of cool. Again, you're able to break screens. I believe Dragonite also gets that. Yeah, it also gets Brick Break. So Salamence can do that too. It does get Bulldoze, which is nice for speed control stuff. So that could be interesting, right? If you could, you know, maybe pilot this next to another Hydreigon, you know, double dragons, and then just click Bulldoze. That could work. Maybe. I'm not sure. Probably not. Then you have Crunch, which is interesting, right? Dark coverage against like the ghost stuff running around. So that's always a niche that you could have for Salamence. Dual Wing Beat, Flying Stab. All right, very, very nice. Of course, you know, you can always change your Terra type to Terra Flying, so you get an extra boost into the Dual Wing Beat, because, you know, even though it hits 2 times, base power 40 is not so much. But the advantage here is if you're going against stuff like Meowscarada, you can break its Sash originally and then go for the second hit KO with the Dual Wing Beat, right? So there's a niche there. All right. Then you got some other coverage moves with fire stuff, with like, you know, Fire Fang, Flamethrower, or Heat Wave. So, you know, these are good against the steel types, like, you know, King Gambit, Goldango, Scizor, you know, you name it. A steel type. Salamence has fire coverage for that. It even gets Helping Hand, which is interesting. Hurricane and Hydro Pump, this is probably more useful on like those rain teams with Pelipper, and I think I like those kinds of sets a lot, like, because like 100% stab Hurricane in the rain is actually really good. So you know, Salamence as opposed to Hydreigon on a rain team would be actually quite useful and quite interesting. So there's some niche role for it there. Okay, you do have steel coverage here with Iron Head, so that's good against, like, you know, if you can go for Terra Steel against like the Sylveons running around now. Rank 3 in usage, by the way, so be careful of that if you're trying to use a Dragon type. Rock Slide, Shadow Claw, okay, you know, again, good coverage. And we did mention Tailwind. Other than that, doesn't have anything else. Oh, it also has Focus Energy. So like the thing with Focus Energy, so you can now use this against Dondozo subs. You can do it with like Tailwind, Focus Energy, Draco Meteor, alright, which basically Hydreigon does it anyway. So like Draco Meteor and then Focus Energy. We featured this set in a video previously. Again, you can just crit through the Dondozo debuffs. Okay, so there's the same kind of concept there. You do get Leer. Leer is interesting. I don't know if you want to use Leer on Salamence. Rock Tomb, we did that in Series 10 in Sword and Shield. You know, this was the Salamence set that got us featured on Aaron Zhang's channel. So that's also something that you can do with Salamence, a bulky Assault Vest set. And then it's got Scary Face, and that's pretty much it. Alright, so some interesting sets, right? You can either run it special, you can run it physical. The thing is like, you know, some of these sets, these dragons already can do. So then it's just like, why would you use Salamence when you can just use these other three? Because they can do the job maybe just a little bit better. And that's true, they can, right? Because, you know, Salamence has Earthquake, right? For example, which is really nice. But then why just do that? Why do that when you can just use that Garchomp? You know, Stab, natural, you know, Earthquake. So Salamence needs a niche that can separate itself amongst these other three and not just repeat the same sets that they can do. And that's the main thing that you're going to have to try and find Salamence to do if you want to carve out its niche on some teams, right? That's my initial thoughts behind it. And we're going to look at some tournament results, quote-unquote results, and see how others have tried and made use of Salamence, all right? So let's take a look. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these tournaments. Let's go all the way to the Nino Pokebros Tour, number 61. When was this? This was like, yeah, Friday. So just before Christmas, right? So we have to go all the way back here, back in 2022. And if we scroll down all the way to rank, I believe, 50, not rank 50, but 50 placement. 5-3 is actually not bad, okay? So even though it's not like quite top cut, it's within the realm, right? 5-3 is still a pretty solid record, I would say. And let's take a look at this team used by Alacrul, which also features a Salamence. It's got Skeleturge, Meowscarada, Quaquaval, and Grimmsnarl. So it's a relatively balanced squad with a Dragon Fairy Steel Core. And you might say, well, where's the Steel type? The Salamence is a Terra type Steel. So this is interesting, right? Because you have Mirror Earth on the Salamence, and of course there's Intimidate. Then you have Draco Meteor, Heat Wave, Iron Head, and Tailwind. All right, so Tailwind with the Steel Stab, and then, you know, it's a special Salamence set with Heat Wave. So this is fine, right? I believe, you know, you can do this. But, you know, I'm looking at the set, you know, why not just have Hydreigon with Draco Meteor, Heat Wave, Flash Cannon, and then Tailwind, right? So, you know, that's a question you have to ask yourself. And then, you know, you have the Mirror Earth over here. But then again, what we said about Salamence versus Hydreigon, Salamence is a little bit faster. And if you're going up against an opposing Hydreigon, maybe you don't want to play the speed tie game. Maybe you want that extra 2 base speed to go before that Hydreigon and then just remove it with a Draco Meteor. So there is some merit to having a Salamence on this team versus another Hydreigon, for example. So I respect it, okay? Oh, Assurance. Holy cow. But yeah, so there's some result here. So, you know, if you want to use Salamence on like a balanced Grimmsnarl team, then yeah, I believe it's possible. All right, let's take a look at this other tour. So let's look at the Tom Hayden's friend and family tour. So let's look at Salamence over here. This one is in top 6. So this one is from Noma. So another good result. This one is again a Dragon Fairy. Is it a no? It's just a Salamence. It's just a balance squad with Tailwind here, right? So it's Dragon Dance with Life Orb. Okay, so that's pretty cool. And again, it's a Terra Fire set with not Heat Wave or not Fire Fang or Flamethrower. It's Terra Blast, so that's fine. You know, this is probably good against resisting the fairy stuff like the Sylveon. And again, there's Tailwind from the Talonflame, and then you have Meowscarada, Goldengo, and even Palmont that can help you out here. you know, just a little bit more support and just more aggression, right? So three physical attackers, technically 4 with the Talonflame, 5 with the Palmont, actually. So only Goldengo is your special attacker. So very interesting set here. But Dragon Claw, Dual Wing Beat are relatively standard stuff. So I don't expect any different there. Then we go to the Durant's Tour. You know, he's been hosting these weekly. So, and they're always like huge tournaments. This one was like 156 person tournament. So that's really nice. And I believe there was also a Salamence here within the top cut, or like towards the bottom of it. If I can just find it here. I don't quite remember where it was. Yeah. Where are you? Did I miss it? I think I did. Alright, this is the one thing where you're trying to find like Salamence, and you just don't find it. Oh, right here. So Shepherd, Gobble. Oh, actually right here. So within the top 30. Not bad. Alright. So another Tailwind Salamence. This one is Habanberry, which is actually really nice against like opposing dragons. Another Terrafire. So Terrafire, very common theme. So Tailwind, Draco Meteor, Heat Wave, Protect. Again, very standard set. Looks like something you might run on Hydreigon, but again, that extra little speed that you want so that way you don't have to play that speed tie game could be relatively useful. Again, paired. Now you also have Trickermon Meowscarada, right? There's a Goldango. There's your own Sylveon. So again, access to Tailwind for Salamence is actually really nice. So there's some merit here. Then if we go into the Joe UX9 Tour, I believe this is one of those really good sets for Salamence. And again, 5-3, again, top 30. But this is the one niche where I like Salamence a lot more than something like Hydreigon. Because, again, you have the power of 100% Stab Hurricane. That's something Hydreigon can't do. You're already faster than Hydreigon, so that's an added bonus. So, you know, I do like Salamence on a rain team with something like Pelipper, maybe even like a Palafin and a Steel type. You know, here it's featured with King Gambit. Interesting that there's no Palafin or another, you know, water sweeper here. So maybe there might need to be some adjustment here. Maybe you could just make this Terra Fire and then swap out the Arcanine for maybe like a Dreadnought, a Palafin, or something. But ideally, you know, not a bad concept. Hurricane, you know, makes a lot of sense. You could even run like Hydro Pump here if you want, and then Draco Meteor. But this is Draco Meteor Focus Energy with Scope Lens. So this is trying for the Hydreigon set. Really good into like the Dondozo. And if you look here on the rest of his team, other than like Mimikyu, who doesn't have Curse, by the way, it just doesn't have much of a Dondozo threat here. Like there's no Clear Smog on the Amoonguss. There's Leaf Storm for some reason. And then, you know, this is your way to counter the Dondozo, right? With the Scope Lens Draco Meteor. So if you want to use Salamence in that regard, you can. But I do like the idea of Stab Hurricane in the rain. I think it makes a lot of sense. Then we go to a more recent tour, the Beanie Brawl. This was during the New Year, so within the recent days. And we do have a Salamence within the top 16. So this is from Moxie Inferno, 5-2. Not quite top 8, but again, 5-2, still a very nice solid result. And again, it's back on a Tailwind team with Talonflame. And there's Goldango and Kingambit again. So this almost looks like a Garchomp team, right? Like if you just had Talonflame, Garchomp, and Rotom Wash, and then Amoonguss Kingambit, that's like Garchomp team right there. It just has a Salamence on it. But again, Dragon Dance, okay, with Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and Fire Fang. Okay, yeah, and again, it's a relative. Terrafire is the norm so far on these Salamence teams. Citrus Berry on the Salamence, but not Life Orb. Very interesting choice. I don't know if I agree with that, but you know, I respect the Recovery Berry. But Endure Amoonguss, holy cow, that's kind of cool. But yeah, again, another kind of Salamence team that's on a balanced kind of squad. So then probably maybe Salamance's most successful result as of this moment is probably what happened to it on ladder. If you take a look here, VGC Pace posted a team over here where it got third on the ladder, right? And that was done by, you know, a national champion. So I'll leave it to a national champion to make a Salamence team like this. And again, if you want the rental, here it is. I think it's a really cool one. It's got Salamence, of course. Then you have next to Garchomp. So you can Earthquake next to Salamence here, which is nice. So similarly how you can Earthquake next to Hydreigon because Hydreigon has Levitate. But because Salamence is a flying type, you can just naturally Earthquake next to it. And then you have a physical set with Dual Wing Beat, Dragon Claw, Brick Break, Breaking Screen. So that's a good tech there. Again, we mentioned that. And then there's Tailwind. So that's nice. So here's your Tailwind setter. And then Garchomp is an Assault Vest Garchomp with, again, Earthquake, Dragon Claw, Rock Slide, and Stomping Tantrum. Single target ground move, okay? Then you have the Palafin stuff. So Palafin really likes Tailwind stuff. And then there's the Indeedee Armor Rouge core with like Trick Room stuff. And the Trick Room is on the Indeedee instead of the Armor Rouge, which is very interesting. But yeah, so, really cool team. And again, if I were to show you the Pokepace here, I can. I have it. They were nice enough to provide it. So it's a 252 Jolly Salamence. The Sylveon is relatively bulky, so is the Garchomp. Not much attack investment there, but it is adamant. Palafin looks relatively standard. But again, Dragon, Fairy, Steel, right? And interestingly, how both of them are Steel type Terrors instead of, one of them being Fire. But again, you have the Armor Rouge for the Fire type. And the Armor Rouge and the Palafin serve as your Fire Water core, but there is no Grass core here. I guess it's just not really needed. But really cool squad. And again, the Dual Wing Beat Life Orb does a lot of damage, right? And it can just break a lot of Sash. So yeah, that's what it's done so far in like tournaments and ladders. So if you want to like try and put it on a balanced team or even put it next to Garchomp, that makes a lot of sense. If you want to do it the way So did and just put it on a rain team and go for like 100% stab Hurricanes, you can do that. You can do the Dracometer Focus Energy set. You can play it physically. You can do a Tailwind set with Terra Steel, and then maybe opt for Iron Head. So there's something there. But I also want to take a look at Pikalytics over here. And if you just type in Salamence, you can like kind of get an idea of like, maybe potential partners you might try. But in terms of move coverage, Tailwind is the most popular move on it. Makes a lot of sense. Then you have a mix of either physical or special moves. You have Dragon Claw, Draco Meteor, all right, and then there's Dual Wing Beat, Terra Blast, Heat Wave, and Brick Break, and there's a Dragon Dance set here. So relative mix, depending on how you want to play the Salamence, whether you want to do like a physical or a special hitter. But in terms of like top teammates, again, the Sylveon, Indeedee, Garchomp stuff, that's probably because of this team over here. So I'm not surprised there. But then you just look and it's like, all right, Amoonguss, King Gambit, relatively standard stuff. And then, these are interesting partners. But in terms of like the most used item for it, it was Life Orb for sure. Interesting to see Scope Lens as a second place item here. Clear Amulet makes sense if you're trying to run it physical. And Intimidate was by far the most common ability. And then the EV spreads, either you were Jolly 252 most of the time, or you just straight up Modest, which is also interesting. Even if the Hydreigons are like full Modest, then you still outspeed them, right? Because you have 2 base speed more. Any bulky spreads? This is definitely a Life Orb one because I can see that there's 68 investment there. And then this is just a Modest bump. So I definitely see this as a Life Orb set. All right, and then if you go down, these are just like, again, relative Life Orb sets for the Salamence. And then you see that they have like different speed tiers. So makes a lot of sense. But, ultimately we showed you the different kinds of teams. What I'm going to do is at the very least, I can show you maybe 2 squads that you can try and use Salamence on. It's just going to be soft team building. So let's just head on to Showdown and let's just show 2 quick squads that you want to try with Salamence. All right, so what I would do is I would just try and just put it on like a simple balance team with like Salamence, Grimmsnarl, and then a Steel type, something like King Gambit, right? And then now you just focus on your Fire, Water, Grass core. I would just do like Skeledirge. You can do Amoonguss, help you out a little bit more in Trick Room. And then you can do something like a Water type. Let's say Azumarill. Yeah, I would just do this. And then this would have the huge power set, and this would be probably a Life Orb set. Something like this, where like you have Salamence and Skeledirge be your 2 special attackers. The Amoonguss and King Gambit are your 2 physical attackers, and then the Amoonguss and Grimmsnarl is like your defensive backbone. Something like this, right? And then you have the option to use Tailwind on your Salamence, but definitely want Draco Meteor for sure. And then from there, it's really up to you how you want to do it. You could even go for Heat Wave here as a special fire type attack. It makes a lot of sense. You can make it physical if you want, but then you're kind of defeating the 2-2-2 rule that I showed with the template. But Something like this is relatively standard. I feel like it's okay. And then what you could try and do is just put it on a rain team like we saw with So. I think it just makes a lot of sense with the hurricane stuff. So let's take a look at that. All right, so if you wanted to put it on a Pelipper rain team, so honestly, I would just run this kind of set where you have Draco Meteor, Hurricane, Heat Wave, and Protect. So you have the Terra Fire option, and then I would just go with like Life Orb stuff. And again, you know, the whole idea is you give the team a fire type in the rain, and you might say that's a little counterintuitive, but again, the fire stuff is what hits the things that rain are weak to, like the grass stuff. And then you can also hit opposing steel types in general, right? But I do like Salamence here. Stab Hurricane with Life Orb is going to hit hard very much. And then you get an Intimidate on here, you know, which could really help you, again, especially against like some Pokemon that just don't use the Killer Amulet because they think Intimidate is not in the meta anymore. So you could have some use there. But honestly, I would just probably build it the same way I would do like my Palafin rain team. So if you remember that idea, so Grimmsnarl of course came here, so you could do like Grimmsnarl Salamence leads, you could do like Pelipper Grimmsnarl leads, you could even do Palafin plus, you know, Grimmsnarl with Pelipper in the back, so you could swap in the Pelipper, start the rain, and then just repivot with flip turn stuff. So that's an idea there. All right, and then from there you have Meowscarada, which is really good because again with Overgrow and then a Focus Sash set with Trick Room, you can flip opposing Tailwind teams upside their head. You have your own Dondozo check here. And then a Steel type, man, you can put King Gambit here if you want. You could even do like Goldango stuff. But again, I just like Scizor, bro. I mean, like Scizor on a rain team to me is just like my kind of playstyle. If you want like a different Steel type, if you want like King Gambit, go for it, right? But I do like Scizor here. But again, the whole idea is, you know, 2 special attackers, you have a support Pokemon, and then you have 3 physical attackers, right? So more or less the same idea, but I really like Salamence on this kind of team just because the rain actually adds to Salamance's viability here in this case. It helps out the Scizor, helps out the Meowscarada. The Grimmsnarl just makes everybody bulky. So there's that. But yeah, I think these are like the best 2 ways to do Salamence. Either you do it the balanced way, the way I showed you, with the previous build, or you can try and put it on a rain team like this. And that's pretty much what these tournament teams were doing, right? If we just go back to it, like they were just all focusing on, you know, building Salamence balanced teams with Tailwind support, and, you know, just trying to make use of it. And again, you have the advantage where you're just 2 base speed faster than Hydreigon, but, you know, you just need a little bit more of a niche for Salamence that maybe something like a Hydreigon, Garchomp, or Dragonite cannot do. So this way, you know, it just makes more sense to use Salamence as opposed to the other 3, right? But let me know what you think of Salamence. Let me know if you've tried to use Salamence. Hopefully I gave you some ideas on how to use it. But yeah, it just hasn't quite carved its mark yet in the meta. It's been tried. You know, there's some results with it. Not like super amazing results, but, you know, it's being experimented on. So hopefully maybe we can see it develop a little bit more as the meta progresses, but it's a little bit hard, right? Because especially when you have stuff like Scalper Rising and Mimikyu Rising and all these, you know, anti-dragon stuff rising, it's getting a little bit harder and harder to try and use Salamence, right? Just because naturally everything is trying to smash the Garchomp, Hydreigon stuff, so by default the Salamence suffers. So, but yeah, if you've been trying Salamence, if you got an idea for Salamence, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, we'll be back with another video in the next one, guys. Peace out and have a good night.